Disclaimer: the information featured in this presentation was gathered through online research via articles, interviews, clips, and other informative sources. Although this video may contain topics that kids find interesting, this video is not made for kids. We wouldn't want to shock the poor little dears now, would we? Yeah, I got that joke from Foxtel. Okay, I've got to choose a movie from the video store. Here it is. The Minty Video Store, and what am I going to go for? Ah yes, here we are. SpaceBalls, the VHS video. Yeah. Welcome to SpaceBalls, the top 10 things you didn't know video. Now let's use the Swartz and explore 10 things that you didn't know about this Star Wars spoof from comedy genius director Mel Brooks. Released in 1987, SpaceBalls follows the misadventures of mercenary space drifters Lone Star, played by Bill Pullman, and his fluffy sidekick Barf, played by John Candy, who set out to save Princess Vespa, played by Daphnes, and her android Dot, voiced by Joan Rivers, after they run away from their home planet Druidia. However, Lord Helmet, played brilliantly by Rick Moranis, and his evil squad of Spaceballs set out in their big spaceship Spaceball 1 at the orders of their President Scroob, played by Brooks, to track Princess Vespa down so they can hold Druidia to ransom in order to steal its heir, where Lone Star must learn the ways of the Swartz from the wise and ancient and merchandise savvy Yogurt, also played by Brooks, in this hilarious take on the spaceship movie genre. I'm not gonna lie, Rick Moranis totally steals the show. In fact, he and George Weiner, who played Colonel Sanders, are just comedy gold in this film. And I think it's a shame that those two didn't do more comedies together. Anyway, with that, 10 things that you didn't know about Spaceballs. Let's see what we can find.
Found anything yet? We ain't found shit.
Number 10. Spaceballs came from a place of love. So watching Spaceballs, you may think that director Mel Brooks probably wasn't a fan of the modern space age movies, of which have become a big thing in the late 70s and 80s. However, that couldn't be further from the truth, as Brooks made Spaceballs in fact because he loved Star Wars and Star Trek, and so, as a fan, Spaceballs was his love letter to the genre, with the director going on to say, "You've got to love what you spoof." He had already spoofed the Western and horror genre, and in light of the Star Wars movies, the science fiction space operas seemed to be the next logical step. And just because Spaceballs was a parody, Brooks still insisted that Spaceballs looked like a legit space movie of its time, insisting that the effects be as good, if not better, than Star Wars. So much so that top special effects company Industrial Light and Magic were used, the company that was created because of Star Wars. Also on board was model maker Grant McCune, who also made models for both Star Wars and Star Trek movies. Along with a movie shark you may have heard of called Bruce. And I think that it shows on screen that Spaceballs had a lot of money put into it, because jokes aside, it does look like a legit science fiction movie of its time. In fact, it was the most expensive film production of 1986.
We're not just doing this for money. We're doing it for a shitload of money.
Number 9. George Lucas said no to Spaceballs merchandising. One of the main gags in the movie is the Yoda-like character Yogurt's quest for Spaceballs merchandising. Although this can be seen as a gag on the heavy amounts of merchandising attached to blockbuster movies, the gag came to be because, in order to make Spaceballs, Mel Brooks had to get permission from George Lucas, on the account it was a Star Wars parody. Lucas was okay with the idea, as long as there was no merchandising attached to Spaceballs, as Spaceballs action figures would look like Star Wars ones.
Did you see anything? No, sir. I didn't see you playing with your dolls again. Good!
So hence that condition was the basis of the yogurt merchandise subplot. Also, according to Wikipedia, which I know is not always the most reliable source, Lucasfilm got involved with the post-production of Spaceballs, and Lucas even sent Brooks a letter declaring how much he loved it and found it funny. Still, going back to the merchandise, when I was a kid, I always wanted Spaceballs the Flamethrower.
May the Schwartz be with you.
Number 8. Casting rejections. For SpaceBalls swashbuckling hero, the cool slick Han Solo parody Lone Star, Brooks wanted a big-time actor to play the part, someone who could bring a lot of clout to SpaceBalls. The two main actors he had his eye on was Tom Cruise and Tom Hanks, but both Toms turned the role down.
I knew it. I'm surrounded by assholes.
According to Bill Pullman, this hurt Brooks, but after managing to get John Candy and Rick Moranis involved, two big names in comedy at the time, Brooks decided to cast an unknown in the role, or be that a relatively unknown. Pullman was cast because Brooks and his wife saw him in a play called Barabbas. And apparently at the time of being cast, Pullman had never seen a Star Wars movie, making him unfamiliar with the subject matter that he was parodying.
And I see your Schwartz is as big as mine.
But that doesn't matter, as let's be honest, Bill Pullman was awesome in the role, and to me he is, and forever will be, Lone Star. Number 7, original title. The title SpaceBalls just works, as it's odd and quirky, and has the word space in it, hence you're in for an oddball space movie. However, the original title of the movie was Planet Moron, which to me is kind of lacking in subtlety. It's like screaming out, "Planet Moron! Look, this is a wacky sci-fi movie!" And the movie was very nearly going to be called Planet Moron had it not been for a British science fiction spoof that came out at that time, which was called Morons from Outer Space. So it was felt that Planet Moron sounded too similar to that title. Brooks decided the title should have the word space in it, and one day Brooks spilt a drink on his hand, and as a reaction he yelled out the word balls, to which one of his assistants suggested that the title should be SpaceBalls. So thankfully SpaceBalls it was. And because of changing the title to SpaceBalls was the reason why all of Dark Helmet's troops have big ball helmets on their heads. Number 6, Makeup Woes. In SpaceBalls, Mel Brooks has a double role, as both the villain President Scroob and as the yoga-type mentor Yogurt, as mentioned, and he's honestly great in both roles. However, playing Yogurt took its toll on Brooks, as the gold paint that was used to paint his face made him break out in rashes, and he had to play the part on his knees in order to make Yogurt look short, which caused him to have quite a lot of pain and discomfort in his knees. Despite this though, he still loved playing the part. When it came time to designing Barf, Lone Star's half-man, half-dog, Mog sidekick, originally, a wrinkly old bulldog mask was designed, which I can't help but think would have looked unintentionally terrifying. But Mel Brooks insisted that if John Candy is to be in the movie, we may as well see his face. Barf's costume was mechanically operated by 3 people, one being Candy himself, who controlled his tail with a remote control hidden in his paw, and 2 technicians who controlled the ears. And in order to accomplish this, Candy had to wear a 30-pound battery strapped to his back, which does not sound fun. In addition to the masks and costumes, it was actually Rick Moranis' idea for his character, Dark Helmet, to talk with a deeper Darth Vader voice whenever his helmet was down, which, let's be honest, made the character even more hilarious.
I am your father's brother's nephew's cousin's former roommate.
What's that make us?
Absolutely nothing.
Number 5, Daphne Zuniga's hesitation to Mel Brooks. Daphne Zuniga plays the bratty Princess Leia parody Princess Vespa. She has great comedic timing and equally great chemistry with Bill Pullman.
You shot my hair! Son of a bitch.
However, when she originally got the part, she was slightly reluctant as she wasn't a fan of Mel Brooks' movies, finding them to be quite too crass and not funny. Yeah, ouch. And although while filming SpaceBalls she found Brooks to be a wacko, she also grew to really like him and appreciate his perspectiveness and sensitivity. In fact, the two got on so well, Brooks would go on to cast Zuniga in The Fly 2 years later, which was a movie that he produced. However, Daphne Zuniga wasn't the only person to have their odd quirks with Brooks, as John Hurt decided to film his cameo at the request of Brooks, but he thought it was just going to be a walk-on-by split-second cameo. He had no idea until he got to the set that they were recreating his chest-burst scene from Alien.
Oh no, not again.
The actor joked that after all the work that was required for that scene, he should have gotten a salary. Also, there is a persistent rumour that British actor Michael York, best known for Logan's Run and Basil Expedition from Austin Powers, provided the voice of one of the apes at the end of the movie. But according to York, that wasn't the case, and thus it wasn't his voice. Number 4. Bizarre DVD Special Feature. In 2005, MGM released a special 2-disc edition of SpaceBalls, and the DVD consisted of a documentary about the making of SpaceBalls, a tribute to John Candy, and even a trivia game. So all in all, it was a pretty impressive package. However, one of the features was quite bizarre. An audio commentary by the Dinks, who were a parody of the Jawas from Star Wars. And literally throughout the whole entire movie, we just hear them say dink 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 all over again. I tried watching the audio commentary once, but I found it pretty grueling pretty quickly, and I just didn't know what the joke was. Like, was this meant to be funny? Or is the joke on me for watching this commentary? I don't know. You know what? Screw it. I'm gonna give you guys a look so you can see what I mean. It just keeps going! It doesn't stop! Seriously, I don't get this! Why was this commentary made? Okay, that's it. I've had enough of all these dinks.
Just stop this thing! I order you!
And just when SpaceBalls merchandise couldn't get any weirder, well, at least the merchandise that was allowed, the novelization, appropriately titled SpaceBalls the Book, was written by Goosebumps author R.L. Stine. Oh my god, my head is processing so much weird after saying all that. Number 3, SpaceBalls the Animated Series. Yeah, this is something I didn't even know about till making this episode, but back in 2008 there was an animated series of SpaceBalls, called SpaceBalls the Animated Series. Being a fan of SpaceBalls, I had no idea why this passed me by or why I didn't even know about it for that matter. The series only lasted one season, consisting of 13 episodes, and Mel Brooks and Daphnes and Joan Rivers all returned to lend their voices to the show. For research purposes, I watched an episode called Outbreak, and I do appreciate that the show uses a lot of adult humour, not dumbing things down because it's now a cartoon. But unlike the movie, it uses a lot of crude, gross out humour, which is fine, but I just found that the movie was more clever with its wit. It didn't need to try and gross you out, but hey, that's just my opinion. Number 2, Reaction. When SpaceBalls was released, it opened up at the number 2 spot in the box office, trailing behind the Dan Aykroyd and Tom Hanks comedy movie Dragnet. It would go on to make $38 million on a $22 million budget. So its numbers were okay, but not spectacular. Something that SpaceBalls got criticised for by critics was the fact that they felt that it came out quite late for a Star Wars parody, and that the movie would have made more sense if it came out while the Star Wars movies were being made. After all, at that time, the last Star Wars movie to come out was Return of the Jedi, which was in 1983, 4 years before SpaceBalls. So there was a feeling that SpaceBalls was irrelevant. But since then, Star Wars has returned to the mainstream several times, and now we all know that in one way or another, Star Wars will always be here with us. So yeah, SpaceBalls is actually very relevant. And the movie's popularity has definitely increased over the years, to the point where it's now considered a comedy classic, with many adoring fans who just can't get enough of SpaceBalls. So I guess you could say that SpaceBalls has aged like a fine wine, or can of ale.
President screwed.
Interestingly, one critic who did like it was Gene Siskel. Yeah, I didn't see that one coming. Number 1, SpaceBalls the sequel attempts. I'm honestly surprised that SpaceBalls never got a sequel. I personally would have loved to have seen more adventures of Lone Star and Barf taking on Dark Helmet. However, over the years, there have been several proposed sequel ideas. Rick Moranis had an idea for a sequel, brilliantly titled SpaceBalls 3, The Search for SpaceBalls 2, and he and Mel Brooks got together to structure the sequel, but the project was eventually abandoned.
What's with you, man? Come on!
Then in 2015, at the hype of the return of Star Wars with The Force Awakens, Mel Brooks stated that he would like Spaceballs to make a return too, in a sequel called Spaceballs 2: The Search for More Money. However, once again, nothing ended up coming of it. I remember reading articles at the time saying that there were talks of the sequel, and some have speculated that the sequel didn't happen because of Rick Moranis' retirement status. So will we ever see the return of Spaceballs? Who knows? But we've also got to ask ourselves, do we want to see the cast all elderly now? I don't know, it might be funny, but it could also be a bit unintentionally tragic. And should Spaceballs return if Rick Moranis isn't on board? Well, time will only tell, but in the meantime we have the classic original in all its Schwartz glory, and that's good enough for me. Spaceballs is a film that I loved as a kid, but I've actually come to love even more as an adult, as I can appreciate the humour that flew over my head when I was young. And I think that perfectly sums up Spaceballs. It just seems to get better and better as time goes on. It's probably my favourite spoof movie ever. Spaceballs is the spoof genre done right. Anyway, I'm Minty, and let the Schwartz be with you. See ya!